The National Desk, America's News Now.
A week of severe winter weather leads to more fatalities. What's in store over the weekend?
All I can tell you is that the president reiterated his strong conviction in the viability of a two-state solution, understanding, of course, that we're not going to get there tomorrow.
Rift between allies as President Biden calls Netanyahu to discuss the prime minister's hard stance for a post-war Gaza. And 8 months after being cleared, Rust actor Alec Baldwin receives new news in the movie's fatal on-set shooting. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David, and right now, severe winter weather continues its wrath with more than 100 million people right now under winter weather alerts. Officials are warning of dangerous travel conditions as snow and ice cover parts of the Pacific Northwest, central U.S., also the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast. And more is on the way tonight with some of the heaviest snow forecast for the southern Great Lakes. Extreme cold alone continues to be a top concern. NBC News reporting that at least 51 people have died from the cold since last Friday. So in a week's time, below zero temperatures in several states are expected to continue into the weekend. Some traditionally warm southern cities could fall into low 20s or teens tonight. And more than 1,000 U.S. flights have been canceled today, according to FlightAware. More than 6,600 have been delayed. And developing now, the U.S. has struck an additional Houthi anti-ship missile in Yemen. This is the 6th time in the past 10 days that the U.S. has targeted the Iran-backed rebel group who's been attacking Israeli and Western-linked cargo ships in the Red Sea, angered over the war in Gaza. It comes after a third Houthi attack on commercial ships in the past 3 days. President Biden now says U.S. strikes against the terror group are not deterring Houthi aggression. National correspondent Atra al-Nashar reports on what this means for a larger conflict in the Middle East.
The leader of the Houthis aiming provocative words at the U.S. and its allies. In a televised speech Thursday, Abdel Malik al-Houthi says it is a great blessing and honor to be in direct confrontation with the U.S.
The issue that America and Britain have joined the war directly and that we are now in direct confrontation with the Americans, British, and Israelis does not scare us at all.
The newly redesignated terror group has been carrying out attacks against commercial ships in the Red Sea in retaliation for Israel's offensive in Gaza, where the death toll is nearing 25,000, according to the health ministry under the Hamas-run government. Last week, the U.S. led airstrikes with the U.K. on Houthi targets in Yemen. President Biden now concedes this.
Are the airstrikes in Yemen working?
Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
The Houthis say they now view American and British interests in the region as targets. Back in Washington, debate about how to put an end to Houthi aggression.
They need to know they're going to be paying a price for trying to diminish the ability to have commercial shipping.
With the Houthis insisting they cannot be deterred, fears of a bigger war in the Middle East breaking out are only getting worse. Founder and president of Eurasia Group Ian Bremmer says it's impossible that the war stay only in Gaza.
There are too many avenues for escalation. The Americans are unable to deter the Houthis from further attacks in the Red Sea. The Americans also cannot deter Netanyahu and the war cabinet in Israel from continued attacks in Gaza.
An escalating crisis with more players and no end in sight, 3.5 months after Hamas's October 7th attacks. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra al-Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Well, recent trouble in the skies becomes trouble on the roads. Today, a Southern Airways Express flight made an emergency landing on a parkway in Virginia, bringing traffic to a complete halt. It's unclear why it had to touch down on the highway. 7 people, we understand, were on board this small plane headed to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Troopers say there were no injuries. This as we get new details on an incredible scene in Miami, a Boeing 747 cargo plane that was forced to make an emergency emergency landing in Miami last night after it began spewing flames. Just take a look at this video right here. The FAA says it has found a softball-sized hole above one of the engines in an Atlas Air flight that was seen shooting out flames and sparks shortly after taking off. No reports of injuries, but the episode marks another setback for Boeing, criticized in recent weeks over a door plug that blew off a 737 MAX plane just minutes after taking off. And new tonight, actor Alec Baldwin has been indicted again, hit with involuntary manslaughter charges handed down by a grand jury today. The lead actor and co-producer of Rust was pointing a gun on set during rehearsal in 2021 when the gun fired, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Previous criminal charges against Baldwin were dismissed last April. And the United States border crisis, not just an issue for the southern border. CBP data now shows that in October and November, there were more than 29,000 illegal encounters coming in from Canada. CBP also reported 189,000 encounters for the entire fiscal year of 2023. Compare that to just 27,000 encounters in the year 2021, and that's nearly a 700% increase. Meanwhile, below the southern border, one of the leaders of the drug cartel implicated in the kidnapping and killing of Americans in Matamoros last year has been arrested by Mexican Marines. In March, 4 American travelers were attacked and kidnapped. 2 died from their injuries, while another 2 survived. In a taped interview with CNN, Attorney General Merrick Garland dismisses claims the DOJ is targeting former President Trump for political reasons. He also says there should be a speedy trial in the election subversion case.
Prosecutions that you're talking about were brought last year, and the special prosecutor has said from the beginning that he thinks public interest requires a speedy trial, which I agree with.
You agree with that?
I do.
Garland was referring to special counsel Jack Smith. The trial is set for March in Washington, D.C., but the case is getting put on pause while a dispute over Trump's claim of presidential immunity goes through the appeals process. It's unclear if the case will go to trial before the 2024 election. And in Georgia, District Attorney Fani Willis, who is behind the election interference case against Donald Trump and others, is headed to court to defend her conduct. New reports on Friday reveal the prosecutor paid for at least 2 airline trips with Willis while the investigation was underway. National correspondent Janae Bowens with more.
The DA mounting a high-profile election interference case against Donald Trump must now face a judge who wants answers about her alleged improper relationship with one of the prosecutors she assigned to the case.
We're dealing ultimately with the integrity of our elections. The integrity of the investigation is absolutely paramount. I mean, avoiding the appearance of impropriety in this investigation and prosecution is probably more important than any other case that's currently pending in the United States.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and attorney Nathan Wade are accused of carrying on a romantic affair and taking taxpayer-funded trips together. Former federal prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Jorge Vela says the allegations cannot be ignored.
At a minimum, extremely embarrassing and negatively affects the public's perception.
You saw the Fani Willis. You saw that deal? Her boyfriend, she gave him $1 million to go get Trump.
Former Trump 2020 campaign official Mike Roman has filed a motion to disqualify Willis from the case. Roman faces charges for his role in the fake electors plot in Georgia. In his motion, he says Wade has been paid an estimated almost $1 million in legal fees. He alleges Wade used those taxpayer dollars to take Willis on lavish vacations.
Isn't it them who's playing the race card?
Willis said race fueled her detractors' allegations.
I appointed 3 special counsel, as is my right to do. Paid them all the same hourly rate. They only attacked 1.
Reports show Willis is now blaming Wade's estranged wife of obstruction too. Willis has not confirmed or denied a romantic relationship with Wade.
Now, does it lead to a disqualification? You know, that's a little bit more of a gray issue.
Willis's hearing set for February 15th. In Washington, Janae Bowens for the National Desk.
Janae, thank you. Coming up, Israel faces mounting pressure to bring hostages home alive. What we're now learning about a potential deal. Then playing football comes with widely known safety risks. But what about just being a fan? A new study shows how it could impact your health. And then later, how volunteers in one North Carolina town are helping stray animals and what inspired one man to get involved. We're back in just 90 seconds. Here is a live look at the White House, where earlier today, President Joe Biden signed the latest short-term funding bill this afternoon, which means the government will stay open. This is the third extension without a full-year agreement. It passed by Congress yesterday and now pushes the next deadline into March. But hardline conservatives in the House, they are not happy about this deal. And according to Axios, they're looking to retaliate against Speaker Mike Johnson. They reportedly plan to hijack Republican message bills, while some members are floating a motion to vacate the speakership again. Johnson has been defending the spending bill since before it passed yesterday.
Yeah, I wanted no more CRs until we could move this process forward. We've achieved that. We forged forward. We got the top line agreement, and in spite of what people are saying on both sides, this is a better agreement than we had.
Thousands gathered in our nation's capital today for the 51st annual March for Life. Abortion is poised to be a contentious issue at the state, local, and national level elections in 2024. Here's more on how it went today.
The marchers came from all over the United States. Where did you guys come here from?
Denver, Colorado.
Turning the less than ideal weather conditions into a symbol of their movement's resilience.
It's exciting to be here. It's really cold, and look at all these people.
There were politicians, priests, and celebrities. Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh making an appearance fresh off winning the National College Football Championship. Anti-abortion supporters scored a major win when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, but the issue is far from settled.
As soon as that was overturned, everyone decided to come after us, and so it's more important than ever to keep sticking up for life.
We're just getting started. This is only the beginning.
Notably absent from Friday's event, any sign of pro-abortion rights counter-protesters. Democrats aiming to position abortion access as a top topic for 2024, perceiving it as a political weak spot for Republicans.
The Democrats have found their voice. They have made this top priority. Our guys, not so much. The abortion issue can really advantage our candidates if they step up and say the right things.
Marjorie Dannenfelser with Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life says they would support a 12 to 15-week federal abortion ban.
I want to save every baby, and so does the pro-life movement wants to save every baby. But we know that that's not how democracy works.
This week, Florida Senator Marco Rubio laying out a three-step strategy for Republicans to win over voters on abortion. That includes pushing a pro-family agenda, extending the child tax credit, and guaranteed paid parental leave.
Marco Rubio's plan has my 100% endorsement. It makes me wish he was running.
Data shows most Americans don't support unlimited access to abortions. A recent poll by Knights of Columbus shows 2/3 of Americans support at least some level of government-imposed abortion restrictions. On the National Mall, I'm Kayla Gaskins for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Well, developing now on the ground in Gaza, an internet and communications blackout hits its 8th day, serving a major blow to emergency services and their ability to render aid to those who need it most. As the ground offensive there presses on, this, as we learned, President Biden has spoken to Israel's Netanyahu for the first time in nearly a month to discuss regional escalation. The two reportedly spoke for 40 minutes. The White House describing the call as good, despite a public rift emerging between the two nations on post-war Gaza plans. But it comes as the IDF fields criticism over a decision to use bulldozers at more than a dozen grave sites in Gaza while exhuming bodies to, as they say, look for hostage remains. Video here from CNN showing some of the sites now severely damaged. The IDF has told CNN that it conducts, quote, precise hostage rescue operations in the specific locations where information indicates that the bodies of hostages may be located. The practice raising alarm by ethics experts who say destroying graveyards violates international law, except under very limited circumstances.
They are, in fact, what international law would consider an object that is normally dedicated to civilian purposes, like places of worship generally. So this is protected from intentional attack. It can only be intentionally attacked or destroyed if it becomes a military objective.
This as pressure on Israel to bring hostages home alive ramps up more than 100 days since the war began. You're looking at a major demonstration that happened today in Tel Aviv. Several hundred women marching, calling on the Israeli government and the international community to do more to help secure the release of hostages held by Hamas. Sources now tell NBC News that Israel is now more amenable to making a deal with Hamas on a pause in fighting or a ceasefire, as we learn new proposals for a hostage deal have emerged. Israel says more than 130 hostages remain in Gaza, though not all of them are believed to be alive. New tonight, more student loan relief on the way. President Biden announcing that the government will forgive $5 billion in student debt for another 74,000 Americans. Now, many of those borrowers have been paying off their student loans for at least 20 years. Biden said his administration has canceled debt for more than 3.7 million people so far. Sales of previously owned homes in the U.S., those fell to a near 30-year low in 2023. The National Association of Realtors also says sales last year fell nearly 19% from 22, which is also the largest one-year decline since 2007, 1 year before the 2008 housing crisis. But with easing mortgage rates, economists believe there could be more demand in the spring home buying season. Macy's is cutting around 2,300 jobs, impacting about 3.5% of its employees. The department store also plans to close 5 mall locations in Virginia, California, Hawaii, and Florida early this year. The company says it's trying to reduce costs and boost declining sales. It also aims to draw in customers who are shopping online and looking for the best deals. Also, Wayfair, it'll be laying off more than 1,600 workers, 13% of its workforce worldwide. The online home goods retailer said it aims to cut costs, remove layers of management, and trim its overall structure. It's Wayfair's third restructuring since the summer of 2022, and the company believes it will save them around $280 million. Meantime, the Los Angeles Times is preparing for major layoffs. According to the LA Times, management said yesterday that substantial layoffs are coming to the paper, and this is reportedly due to a budget deficit. But the Times is reporting the layoffs will affect about 20% of the newsroom. Employees staged a one-day walkout today in protest. A word of caution today as we head into a weekend of playoff football. A new study says being a sports fan may be hard on your heart. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares how to lower your potential risk.
Hey there, hello to you. This new international study on whether or not being a sports fan can be dangerous to your health looked at which health problems are most likely to occur and in which sports.
Researchers discovered spectator sports, which included football, baseball, rugby, and soccer, have the potential to be associated with cardiovascular events. It's likely due to the psychological and strong emotional response we have when we cheer on our favorite teams, and perhaps what we tend to eat and drink during sporting events. A rise in blood pressure, irregular heartbeats, chest pain, heart attacks, and sudden cardiac deaths were all potential risks, according to the study published in Current Problems in Cardiology. But preventive cardiologist Dr. Joel Foreman says we can all lower these risks with what the Heart Association calls its Essential 8.
Exercise, don't smoke, maintain a healthy body weight, eat a plant-based Mediterranean-type diet, okay? Control your blood pressure, control your blood cholesterol, control your blood sugar, control your weight. And all of us should be doing as much of that as we can.
Dr. Foreman says sports fan or not, doing a few of these can help the heart.
I try to encourage people to make changes over time and do what they can.
One other important thing, the risk of cardiac events for fans went up toward the end of the event, especially when competition was intense.
So bottom line here, if you feel yourself getting emotionally involved in the game, might want to consider a short time out. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
All right, Liz, thank you. And coming up, the unusual coffee shop break-in that made the owner believe the criminal needed help with his mental health. We will explain on the other side. We have reporters all across the country covering issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
Feeding and watering these feral cats is a daily ritual for Eric Phelps of Sister Kitten Animal Rescue.
Always been a cat guy, and always had cats my whole life. I never knew anything about these colonies of cats that lived outside.
Phelps says several years ago, some friends alerted him to the feral cat population.
It just was something that really struck a chord in me. It was one of those things that I really wanted to start working on and trying to help as many of these cats as we could.
News 13 caught up with Phelps and volunteer Leanne Ray at a feral cat colony in the River Arts District. Phelps says it's one of about 10 colonies in Asheville, making for a total of 40 to 50 feral cats they feed.
He
He came in, he threw a package into the air. It landed over on the side there, and he yelled out, "This is a bomb."
That's how Tommy Clark, the owner of Mission House Coffee, says Wednesday's scare started.
Walked up to the front, waving his hands around, saying, "This is a robbery."
That man, according to police, was Lawrence Murphy, who then walked up to the counter. Clark says he stood there and smiled for a second.
Then he backed up, said nobody's allowed to leave, came back over here towards the door, actually lit up a cigarette, and that's when he started to get into the faces of some of the customers that were sitting there.
Clark says one of his employees in the back called him, while the other alerted police through a panic alarm.
We also had a customer over here stand up and get in the guy's face and say, "You need to get out of here."
Clark believes that, coupled with the alarm sounding, is what finally got Murphy out the door, while customers ran out the back. He says he's happy about how his employees and police handled the incident. Clark says it was clear that Murphy needed help mentally.
Amy delivered her twin boy and girl at 37 weeks. When he was born, they found out their son Quintino was born with Down syndrome and a congenital heart defect. They were told he would need heart surgery.
So it was a very long battle, a very long neonatal intensive care stay. We were home a very brief time. He declined really quickly. We ended up getting life-flighted to area children's hospital about an hour from us, and he stayed there until they could stabilize him and get him healthy enough to have the open heart surgery, to have the repair to the hole in his heart.
Today, her son's heart is healthy, and Quintino has learned to survive and thrive with his Down syndrome diagnosis. She says getting help early on was key.
Well, the Buffalo Bills have a big playoff match this weekend. What the team has to offer their fans to make sure the game can be played. Well, the Buffalo Bills are turning to their fans once again. For the second time in a week, the team is going to be paying volunteers $20 an hour to help dig out Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park. Keep in mind, parts of Buffalo have received nearly 6 feet of snow since last Saturday. The Bills host the Kansas Chiefs on Sunday in the second round of the NFL playoffs. If your team is in the running, best of luck to you this weekend. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful weekend.